Hello everyone, I'm Sara and welcome back to my crochet channel. I'm super excited about today's video. What we're doing is we're making a Christmas tree skirt, and I'm calling it the Cranberries and Ivy Christmas tree skirt because it has all these beautiful greens and reds in cranberries and deep colors of green, along with some light colors of green and some in here, some pinks with some browns. And it just reminds me of Cranberries and Ivy. And also the yarn that I'm using is called Cranberries and Ivy. And so I thought I would just name it the Cranberries and Ivy Christmas tree skirt. It's a nice size. It's about 22 inches long at its longest point, and it measures about 80 inches around. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do the Christmas tree skirt in 3 steps or parts, which will be 3 separate videos. Today we're going to be working on the body of our Christmas tree skirt. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be working on how to do these solid rows in here. And then on Friday, for our Friday Fun Day, I'm going to show you how to make this trim. Now it's called the bobble trim, but I'm calling it the snowball trim because it looks like little snowballs. And I think it adds the perfect touch for the Christmas tree skirt. Now you're going to enjoy making this because it's not a hard Christmas tree skirt. And by using a variegated or striping yarn in the body, we aren't changing colors. We can keep going with that same yarn. And we'll talk more about yarn in just a second. Now, if you want the written pattern with pictures, you'll be able to find that blog link down in the notes underneath this video where I always put that link. It's down in that description box. Each day I will be adding more pictures and more information, and of course a video for each of the 3 steps. So make sure when you go to that link, you refresh that page because we're going to be putting it all on the same blog so that all the information at the end of the week is just on one block and you don't have to go clicking all around to find those parts. To make your Christmas tree skirt, we're going to be using all medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns. This one that I made is made with this yarn. It's called Craftsmart. This is a Michaels brand from the Michaels store. This is the yarn and how it looks that's called Ivy and Cranberries. All right, and you're going to need about, let me look at my notes here, 12 ounces of your variegated. Now, if you can't get this yarn, that is okay. There are some other options that you can use. One of them is this. This is the Hirschner's Pastry Puff. It's a long striping yarn, so your striping colors, of course, will be just a little bit longer and different. And if you can't get that, you can use any of the Super Saver or I Love This Yarn or any yarn that's variegated, that's a medium weight number 4 yarn. Now I'm using variegated for the body of my tree skirt. You don't have to. And also, you don't have to use traditional colors. If your Christmas tree is, say, blues and whites, you can use a variegated blue or even an ombre for the body of your tree skirt. Or maybe your Christmas tree is purples and silvers. That would be super pretty. You can do it however you want. You can even do the body portion in a solid. All right, so for the body portion of your Christmas tree skirt, you're going to need about 12 ounces. And then you're also going to need 3 different colors. You're going to need a solid green and a solid red, and these are also Craftsmart colors. All right, this one is called Ivy, and this one is just called bright red. And then this one is just white. And I do suggest that you go with like a nice white and not do an off-white or a soft white, because these are going to look like snowballs on this last row. So you're going to need about 2 ounces of your green and red and 3 ounces of your white. All right, and then also your 12 ounces of your main body color. Okay, so that's the amounts of yarn that you need, all medium weight number 4 yarns. We're going to be stitching with an eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You need a pair of scissors and then a needle for weaving in ends. All right, let's get started with part 1 of our Christmas tree skirt. We're going to begin with a slip knot, and we're going to loosely chain 31 chains. I have chained those 31 chains, and now we're going to begin by stitching a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. That's our double crochet. Now we'll double crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Our chain 3 counted as our first, and then we stitch 3 more double crochets. Now in the next stitch, or the next chain, we're going to stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. Now we'll go to our next chains and stitch 1 double crochet in the next 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we'll stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in our next chain. And then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, in our next chain, we'll stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. And see how that's working? It's making our shape of the top of our tree skirt. All right, so we'll do that again. 1 double crochet in the next 4. Double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in that next stitch, and 1 double crochet in the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That leaves us with those 5 chains. So we'll stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in the next stitch, and then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in these last 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll go ahead and chain 3, and then we'll take a look at it. Tails of yarn out of the way, and you can see already that that's going to be the shape of the top of our tree skirt, and as we work it will of course increase. So we have 24 double crochets, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of double crochet, chain 2, double crochet to form these points. That's row 1. All right, let's do row 2. We've chained 3. We're going to turn our work. We're going to double crochet in the next 4 double crochets. This brings us to our first chain 2 space. And in the chain 2 space, we're going to stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. Then that brings us to these next stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in those 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That brings us to our next chain 2 space. So in that chain 2 space, we're going to stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. And then again, we'll stitch 1 double crochet in these six double crochet stitches. And that brings us to our next chain 2 space. And in that chain 2 space, we're stitching a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. And then we'll continue to repeat this until we get to these last few double crochet stitches. I repeated that around till I reached my last chain 2 space, and I stitched my double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. And now we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in these last 5 double crochets. There we go. And chain 3. We still have our 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chain 2 spaces, but we've increased the amount of stitches in between. So we have 5 here on the ends, and then we have 6 in each of our in-betweens. So we have 24 plus 10 is 34 double crochets, and then 5 double crochet, chain 2, double crochets. And this is the way the pattern works. We're going to be increasing every row. Let's do row 3. So again, we're going to turn our work. We're going to double crochet in these stitches. And so now we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches on the ends. Our chain 3 always counts as our first double crochet at the beginning of our rows. That brings us to our chain 2 space, and we'll stitch our double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in our chain 2 space. Now that brings us to our next set of double crochets. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of those 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that brings us to our next chain 2 space. So we'll stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and a double crochet in that chain 2 space. And we'll continue what we did right here on these next sides until we reach that last chain 2 space, and then we'll have 6 on the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So just repeat what we've done here on these other sides. I continued to repeat the 8 double crochets, double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the chain 2 spaces until I reached my last chain 2 space. and then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in those last 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we'll chain 3. And so now what we have for row 3 is we have 6 double crochets on each end. Then we have 5 of our chain 2 spaces with our double crochets. And then we have 8 double crochets in between each one. And so now we have a total of 44 double crochets and 5 of our double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in our chain 2 spaces. We've chained 3. We're going to turn our work. Again, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. And then we're going to double crochet in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. So that's going to give us 7 stitches on the ends. Our chain 3 counted as our first double crochet, and then we stitched 1 in each of the next 6. And this brings us to our chain 2 space, and we'll stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. And so we've increased by 1 on each row of our end. Now this brings us to our double crochets, and we're going to stitch 1 in each of those 10 double crochets. One double crochet in each of those 10. Now we're going to go in our chain 2 space and stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. And then that brings us to that next set of 10 double crochets. Seven, 8, 9, and 10. And we'll repeat that on these next sides, and then we'll finish up with those last double crochets. And I think you can see how the pattern is working. I repeated those sides till I reached my chain 2 space and stitched my double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. And now I'm going to finish by stitching 1 double crochet in each of these double crochets. And chain 3. All right, so on row 4, we have 54 double crochets and then 5 sets of our double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet. So let's do row 5. We've chained 3. We're going to turn our work. Our chain 3 counts is our first double crochet, and then we're going to place a double crochet in each of those stitches. We count our chain 3, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We had 7 on the previous row, and on this row we have 8. And remember to count your chain 3 as your first stitch. Now we're going to do our double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in our chain 2 space. And then that brings us to our next section of double crochets. And that brings us to our chain 2 space. So double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in our chain 2 space. And then we'll repeat those stitches in those next 3 groups with those chain 2 spaces in between, and then we'll finish up on this end. So repeat what we did here 3 more times. I have repeated this side on these 3 sides, and here is my last double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, and then I'm going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those remaining stitches. And chain 3. For row 5, we have 8 double crochets, our double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in our chain 2 space. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 double crochets, and then our double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in our chain 2 space. Then we repeated that 3 more times, and then we ended with 8 double crochets. So for row 5, we have a total of 64 double crochets, and then 5 of our sets of double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. And again, we increased by 1 at the beginning and end, and we increased by 2 double crochets in each of our 4 sets. All right, let's do row 6. We've chained 3, turn our work, 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets. 1, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we increased by 1. Then double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in the chain 2 space. And now we'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets. All right, let me see how many I've done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 double crochets. The row before we had 12. This row we have 14. So we increased by 1 at the beginning and end. And this brings us to our chain 2 space, and we'll stitch a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in that chain 2 space. And now we'll just repeat what we did here on these next 3 sides. I have completed row 6. We have 9 double crochets, so we increased by 1. We have our double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in our chain 2 space, and then we have 14 double crochets across, and then again our chain 2 space with our double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. So we increased by 2. All right, so we increased by 1 here and here, and then 2 and these 4. So we increased by a total of 10 double crochets. And so what you're going to do to make the body of our tree skirt is you're going to continue to repeat row 6, increasing by 10 double crochets every row. 1 here, and then 2 on each of these sets or sections. All right, you'll continue to repeat row 6 for 19 more rows, and that will complete the body portion of our Christmas tree skirt. So just to repeat, you're repeating row 6, increasing by 10 double crochets every row for 19 more rows. So you're repeating row 6 for 19 more rows, and that's going to get you 25 rows, and you're increasing every row by 10 double crochets, and that will complete step 1 or part 1 of our Cranberries and Ivy Christmas tree skirt. Now the next step is part or step 2, and we'll be doing the solid rows on the trim of our Christmas tree skirt. See you for part 2.